personal injury protection, and basic policies have $10,000 worth of PIP, and you can get with your insurance carrier and increase that PIP and add additional med pay. But let's just talk about the basic PIP that everybody has, $10,000, and we're in a no-fault state. So if you're driving down the road and you hit a cow, you still have your PIP coverage. If you are driving down the road and you hit somebody, you still have your PIP coverage. If you're seated in your car at a light, someone hits you, you still have your PIP coverage, and that's $10,000, and that will pay for 80% of your medical bills and up to 60% of any lost wages. I could speak for 30 more minutes on PIP, but what you need to realize is when PIP is in place, it's basically first come, first serve, which means whatever provider submits their bill to the insurance company is going to get paid first. So be very mindful of that when you start your treatment, which I would like to add, in the last 6 to 8 years, the law has changed to the extent that if you fail to get medical treatment within the first 2 weeks of the crash or the incident, your PIP is basically gone. So you must seek medical treatment. And the basis for this is due to the large amount of fraudulent claims that has been going on in Florida. And they've basically cracked down and said, okay, if you want to use your PIP benefits, it's available to you, but you must seek medical treatment for that particular crash and for your injuries as a result of that crash within 2 weeks.
And I've heard that as well, that it's very important because sometimes after a crash, you think you're not hurt, but you have adrenaline going in your body, so you're not really feeling all the pain yet. So it's really a general rule, a good idea to go in and get checked out regardless, especially.
Exactly. And, going back to the coverage, there's been, many times where people have told me, oh, I have full coverage. Well, that tends to send red flags when someone says I have full coverage. And what I would like and offer is that if anyone has a question about their own insurance policy, I'd be more than happy to talk with them over the phone about it. If they feel comfortable enough, they can scan and email me a copy of their insurance policy, and I will tell them and be able to tell them exactly what they have, what they don't have. And depending on their lifestyle, the number of people in their home, how much time they use the car, I can make some humble suggestions on maybe increasing or decreasing certain coverages in their existing policy. But again, going back to the fact pattern, if someone is seated in their car and they are rear-ended, clearly they're not at fault. If they are hit by someone who might not have enough coverage or doesn't have any insurance, and they themselves do not have there's no one else to go after to compensate you for your damages, which could be lost wages, medical bills, pain and suffering, future earning capacity. It kind of snowballs. And as Casey, I'm sure as you're aware of, as all our listeners are, if you're transported to the hospital, that transportation, that's $1,000 right there, easy. If you spend one evening at the hospital or you get any type of treatment other than a Tylenol or an ice pack, you're talking thousands of dollars. So you could see how that PIP can be gone through very, very quickly, even before you start treatment for any injuries that you might have sustained as a result of the crash.
10,000 does go very quickly. So does your health insurance pick up after PIP, or is that something that you look into when you're talking with different clients?
That's a great question. Your PIP will cover up to 80%. So, for example, if you have, say, the transportation bill from Martin County EMS, and say it's $1,000, and they submit that bill to your PIP carrier, PIP will pay 80% or $800. That remaining $200, you can submit your own secondary insurance, whether it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Humana, something along those lines. And again, equally as important, or sometimes more important, PIP will cover your lost wages. But again, it's on the first come, first serve basis. So make sure if you do lose time from work that you submit your lost time to the PIP carrier directly, or if you have an attorney, make sure he or she is very well aware that you have missed work.
Are you able to get higher PIP coverages?
Yes, as I said earlier, you can increase your PIP. You can get what they call med pay, 5, 10, 15, 20, $25,000, for medical bills, which is a very good idea.
What if you're in an accident and it's not your fault? You're rear-ended. The other person also has insurance. It's not underinsured. Whose PIP covers your first 10,000 or what have you then?
Okay. PIP stands for personal injury protection. That's only for you, the carrier, that PIP insurance. Has nothing to do with the person that hit you or the cow that fell in front of you or the tree that landed. It's just only for you, personal injury protection.
So it's going to be against your own insurance. Does that affect your rates if you use a PIP?
It depends who's at fault. Some carriers will say, okay, you weren't at fault. All right, it should not affect your rates. Now, if you're at fault, you can still use your PIP. That might be a little bit adverse to the carrier, and they might say you might be high risk. If there's 3 crashes in a year or something like that, your rates might go up, or they might decide, not to insure you anymore. They always have that option.
Well, it's certainly one of those issues when you're getting auto insurance of what policy to get and what kind of rates. And this, again, we're talking with Robert Lewis. He is with, of course, the law office of Robert Lewis, and you can find out a little bit more about Robert at robertlewisflorida.com. Robert, I'll let you shout out your phone number that folks can reach you at if they have questions as well.
Oh, sure. My office number is 561-575-1606. And my email is simply my name, Robert, at rmllaw.com. So Robert at R for Robert, M for Michael, L for Lewis, the word law.com.
And if folks have a question, do you charge a consultation fee?
Absolutely not. I've never have, nor will I ever charge a consultation fee. If someone has a question, again, someone wants me to look over their insurance policy, I'll be more than happy to do it. It's all about, peace of mind, driving, whether it's with your grandchildren, your children, or if you're by yourself, you want peace of mind. And that's exactly what insurance is for. But you have to have the right insurance for that rainy day. And in Florida, with all the transient people and the snowbirds and the stats that show, in a lifetime, the average person will be in a car crash between 1 and 4 times. Chances are you have been or you will be involved in one way or another with a car crash.
Certainly with I-95 and the crazy driving tactics that go on with that every day. I won't say how fast I was going by because Sheriff Snyder, in case he's listening, I was exceeding the speed limit one day a little bit, and it was crazy. I was being passed on the left and right. So that's just I-95 driving every day.
And that reminds me of a joke, if I may. I have this friend. His name is Tim Mullahan, and he is a friend of mine, and he was driving his Jaguar at a pretty good rate of speed out of state. I believe it was in Vermont or Maine, and he was stopped by a state trooper. And Tim Mullahan happens to be an attorney as well. I don't think he practices in the state of Florida, but I believe he's an attorney. And he was stopped, and immediately he put on his attorney hat and said, "Officer, why did you stop me? And what was your probable cause?" And the officer said, "Well, can I have your license and registration, please?" And Mr. Tim Mullahan said, "Well, why don't you tell me first why you stopped me?" He goes, "Well, not only were you going a little bit above the speed limit, but when you came to that stop sign, you didn't come to a complete stop." And Mr. Mullahan threw up his hands, and now he was in litigation mode. He says, "Well, what's the big deal? What's the difference if I slow down? I think he called it a California roll, or if I completely stop. What's the big deal?" And the trooper said, "Well, Mr. Mullahan, it's easier if I explain to you or demonstrate to you exactly the difference between stopping completely or just slowing down." So the officer, with all due respect and with very calming measures, put his pen back in his little pocket holder, laid down his ticket book, reached in, grabbed Mr. Mullahan, and just started to nail him in the face repeatedly. And at some point, the trooper said, "Now, Mr. Mullahan, would you like me to slow down or would you like me to stop?" And that's how he conveyed the difference between slowing down and coming to a complete stop.
That's a very vivid example, and I'm sure that that gentleman clearly became quite aware of stop was the preferred method there at a
Response.
stop sign. That's right. I got a quick question for
Yes.
you. Julie Griffin said, "How many states are no-fault states, and is Florida behind in laws regarding insurance laws?"
Okay, most states, from my understanding, are no fault, but there is a misconception of what no fault means. No fault pertains to the PIP. And I kind of jokingly said, if you're driving down the road and you hit a cow, you are basically at fault in that situation, or the cow could just run out and hit your car, then you're not at fault. So that is what is referred to as a no fault state. So whether you're at fault for the crash or you're not at fault, you still are entitled to your own PIP benefits.
Okay, very good. Let's talk a little bit more. We've certainly been focusing on auto insurance, but what other types of insurances do you cover in your practice? Homeowners, I mean, liability.
Well, I can certainly talk about if someone has a question about homeowners. Usually, and remember that when people go to get insurance, they are greeted and they have the friendly faces on one side of the office. And they're the friendly faces that want to get your business and to sign you up and to get your premiums, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes time, because if you do make a claim for a remember, you're going after your own insurance carrier. And in a sense, and more often than not, you have to sue your own insurance carrier for your benefits, which you pay a premium. So it kind of sounds a little, strange, kind of suing someone that's supposed to be on your team, but that's basically the reality of it. And one more thing about it's not automatic. You still have to prove your case to your own insurance carrier that your injuries and the monies have exceeded what the person's insurance covers or does not cover. So it's not an automatic, "Oh, I need some more money, I'm going to get it from my own insurance company." You have to show that there was not enough money. That person was either uninsured or underinsured before you can go after your own insurance company. So you have to cross that threshold. And then if you're able to meet that threshold, you have to set and prove your whole case. And more often than not, if it's a significant number, now you're in litigation with your own insurance company.
Do you recommend that when folks are in an accident that they automatically contact an attorney just to understand the law, understand what their responsibilities are?
Absolutely, because I don't consider myself any smarter than anybody else, but this is what I do for a living. Just like if I needed someone to do, fix a pipe, I'm not going to try and do it myself because I could cause more damage to my own, plumbing system than what the initial, problem was. So yes, I do suggest someone call an attorney. I mean, again, we can have a whole nother show about what to do at the scene, but I would say for right now, if you're involved in a car crash, make sure you get names of witnesses. Don't rely on the officer to get and record witnesses' names and phone numbers in the report. Make sure you take an abundance of photographs, any injuries on you, of the other person. With all this technology, you can do a video. Make sure you take picture after picture and basically help yourself at that crash site because, again, don't rely on the officer to go and methodically get every witness, and record their name, phone number, etc.
Going to be up to you in the end, and that's really good advice. We got just a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to throw a couple wild examples that have nothing to do with automobiles, but it's things that you hear. For example, a tree that's on a property line, and the tree branch falls. The tree's on neighbor A's property, but the branches go on neighbor B. Branch falls down into neighbor B's property, and it hits his house and does damage. Who's responsible for the cost of the repair to that home?
That's a great scenario. One, you're going to have, hopefully the person will have homeowners insurance. But it kind of boils down to the facts of the case. Was the tree branch breaching the property line? And if that is the case, then there could be argument that, well, did you put the other homeowner on notice? The homeowner that owned the tree, and the owner of the tree is where the trunk is
Right.
on their property. And if notice was given and there was a request to cut it down or to trim it, and that person refused to do it, well, then you're able to do it because it's breaching your line. So when the facts come out, if that tree was breaching the property line and it was there for a couple of months, well, there could be argument that the homeowner didn't take corrective action. He knew of the branch, and a reasonably prudent person would say, well, look, if it fell, it's going to hit your house. So why didn't you take some type of remedial measure to try and reduce the possibility that if that tree branch were to fall, it would fall maybe shy of the house?
Okay. That's always one of those questions that comes up. Another great topic is just liability insurance for homeowners. That's something that insurance agents always say, well, you should have additional liability insurance in case somebody comes and they fall and trip and break a leg.
Right. I mean, yes, in this day and age, everybody's so litigious. You would hope that, if someone's on your property and they slipped and fell on their own accord, you just help them up and that would kind of be it. But in today's society, it is highly recommended that you have homeowners, liability, premise insurance just for that reason. You're having a small get together or a fundraiser, and someone is in the home, and you're serving cocktails or refreshments, and they go and they trip, and it can be totally their fault. They're on a 3-inch wedge and their heel slips out, but the fact is, the incident occurred on your property. So they're going to contact an attorney, rest assured, and they're going to create this, picture that somehow the homeowner, was at fault.
Another quick question here. With do not resuscitate in place, how come physicians ignore it and listen to the family?
Ask that question once more.
With do not resuscitate in place, if you have a do not resuscitate order, how come physicians ignore it and listen to the family? How are they able to do that? If there's a DNR in place.
If there is a DNR in place, the hospital staff and the treating physician, especially say like in a hospice situation, they should honor that. That is the family member's wish, and they should honor that. I can't think of a situation that I've heard of where someone has just blatantly overridden that and just resuscitated when there's definitely a do not resuscitate request in place.
Sounds like it could be a court case in the making. So thank you so much, Robert Lewis. If you could put up Robert Lewis's contact information, he will be happy to answer your questions. And next week we're going to have our new Indian River keeper, Mike Connor, on air.